And we could do EU. And we thought EU is the best alternative because we simply wanted our people to have the same human rights and economical development like you have in any European country. We said our people should have that. And of course it is a vicious circle, economy and human rights. I mean, one goes together with the other one, we do believe, we still believe. If you just do economy well, one day it will crack up if you don't human rights, because when democracy will come, maybe you remember there was a crisis in the 90s in the Far East. And also that will be the crisis in a lot of other not open economies in the future. So we believe it comes with itself. When you open up, when you want to open up the economy, you have to start with human rights. So we did we made ourselves ready to go for the Copenhagen criteria in the human rights. And we had tons of conversations, a lot of discussions before, years and years before, in the 90s. And believe me, the Prime Minister knows what he's doing. I mean, it wasn't just a lip thing, you know, EU or whatever. But as everybody says, it's not where you go, it is the way where you want to go. And here, the same thing goes for Turkey. Within 2002 to 2011, 9 years, where did we start? Where are we now? I think we did our job here in this country because we opened up our economy, we opened up our system to the EU. We could, my very dear friend Egemen, who is in charge of EU today, if the political okay would come from the EU, the chapters would be done within 1.5 years now, all of them. Because all governmental ministries and everybody got his task to align with the EU standards and whatever. And so we are working for ourselves and for our people. While in the EU, from the other side, I have to admit, I myself, I'm one of the top sponsors of EU. But I'm so devastated by the double standards. I saw myself, and I heard with my ears and with my eyes when we talked, for an example, in the first meeting it was Copenhagen, I think, in 2002, right after the elections, in December 2002, I believe. Those meeting, Tayyip Erdogan said, "What would you do? I mean, when you allow Cyprus into, because it's a divided island. We're talking about only southern Cyprus. What would happen with Turkey? Because they would block everything." And I tell you, I heard from all the leaders the same thing. Don't worry. We make them not to say anything. They're just southern Cyprus. And what happened, I was there too, in 2004, was it? When it was really time, yeah, it was 2004. Again, this time in Brussels, I believe. December 2004 in Brussels. The same people. They didn't change. All of a sudden said, I remember that morning when the Dutch, I think foreign minister, Both was the name, came into the room. We're sitting there, including Tayyip Bey is the prime minister, Abdullah Bey is foreign minister, and me and a few others are sitting. And he says, well, I'm happy that we are done with everything and you can start negotiations and everything is clear what you wanted. But there is a small, just one issue. You have to agree on southern Cyprus, that you accept, blah, blah, and all this stuff. All of a sudden. When I heard this, and I know the Prime Minister for a very long time, I remember writing these text messages to the friends of mine. And I wrote the same message. I said, it's over. We're going back. We're going home. I knew my Prime Minister. And you know what? 15 minutes later, he stood up and said, thank you, bye-bye. We went. We went out of the meeting. I knew we would go. These 15 minutes, he didn't speak at all. He just thought his new strategy. What would he do after he goes out? Where would we heading Turkey? These 15 minutes, he thought over it. When he was clear, he stood up, thank you, we're going. And everybody but a few of us was shocked. And you know the story. Then they came. Gertrude came, Tony Blair came. But it's a pity. Europe had good leaders back then. Blair was a good leader. Gertrude was a leader. You know, and so we started the whole thing again. But I remember again such an issue when the European Union leaders told us, if you and Northern Cyprus would make the Annan Plan happen and say yes to the referendum, don't worry, we will lift up all the embargoes and give the help and this and that. And we did it. And they even agreed at the EU that they would do that, what they promised. Still today, it's been what, 5-6 years, they didn't act. And they are saying the Ankara agreement and this and that. Hey, an agreement is an agreement, okay. But if both parties have to do what they said that they would do, if only one side is doing that, it's not an agreement anymore. So I am a lot really disappointed that the EU has not a voice. And I don't think I need to tell you what I mean with that. Because Germany is the main issue here, with 3.3 million Turks or Turkish Germans. I think 900,000 Turkish Germans are there already, and 2.5 million still Turks. Germany is the main issue in the EU for Turkey. I believe that Turkey, if we can go the path we are going the last 8 years now, still another few years, a lot of people, including the CDU, especially of course CSU, will understand, hey, not a few millions of, what was the word, Bauernhorden, herds of villagers would overrun Germany if Turkey would join the EU. The opposite happens. Brains coming back. A lot of people are trying to come back to Turkey because here is the job, here is the growth, not in Germany. And no Turk does want to go out of his country anymore because of political reasons. And before it was economical reasons, and now the economical reasons are also gone. Everybody knows there's no money in the EU cash anymore, which you could get. The opposite, Turkey would be the second, if we would join, we would be the second largest European economy, not getting but paying. We know that. And there will be a day when they will know that too, but this day when the Europeans will understand that in a few years' time, hopefully, that the Turkish youth will pay the rents, their rente, the retirement costs, then there can be a problem, because it's not important, as I say, that Austria or France will have a referendum whether Turkey can get it or not. That's not very important. Important is whether the Turkish referendum, if we have that, and I'm pretty sure we would have that, would say yes to EU after what they did to us the last so many years. But I happen to know Tayyip Erdogan, the today's prime minister, since the late 80s, and I liked him. We liked each other very much, and I believed that after Özal, he could be the new leader. And I told him back in the 90s he will be prime minister. I didn't intend it to be in politics because I'm a businessman. I mean, it's deadly for a businessman to be in politics. But it came that I had to be founder of the party because there was no other businessman. And plus, in those days, there was very few guys who knows the Western mentality. Not only the language. Languages a lot of people do know, but mentality is important, you know. And when I went with the prime minister to meetings, he knew. He often didn't use translators because I was never a translator. I just said he wants to say that, which was very quick and simple. And if you believe, if you trust somebody, I think it is very, very easy for you. Instead of a translator saying every word, and in the end you really don't understand what he says because you don't know the mentality in what he says, because it's word for word. And it went so long that even the German prime ministers didn't use any other translators. It was very unorthodox that two prime ministers are talking with only one guy who translates, and that was me. I did that with Schröder. It started with Schröder, and even with Merkel, it went on like this. And you can believe me that the protocol guys from the other side were very unhappy about that. But that was good because the others trusted me too. So I helped the prime minister to open up the party, the AK Party. I refused to go into parliament, be minister or whatever, because I love my freedom, and the hierarchy, the political hierarchy is nothing for me. Plus the system I don't like, the political system. Still today what we have in Turkey is not my view. I mean, we actually in Turkey, we have the presidential system. Tayyip Erdogan, in my eyes, is a president because people choose him. People do not choose AK parties, whatever, X, Y, Z. People choose him. So that's why he knows that, of course, because his vote is always, when you do a comparison, it's always higher than the vote of the party. So, but he doesn't have any responsibilities because we don't have the presidential system. So he has the authority, but not the responsibilities. That's why I believe we should bring in the presidential system. So to give the president also the responsibility. So I'm taking it from the other side. And after 3.5 years ago, after we got 47% in the second general election, I asked him for leave, but it took, of course, 7-8 months until he said yes. And I went back to business, but word go around that people think I'm a good advisor. People said, this is the advisor to the prime minister. Well, I wasn't an advisor. I just tried to help him. I called myself assistant. And, but anyway, people thought, and businesses came to me, of course, in the beginning, very clear, because I could be a good lobbyist. But after a few years, they understood, hey, this guy is also in business, which I was. Since I was 11, I was in my father's and grandfather's businesses. So now I'm working with a lot of companies, including German companies and US companies, private equities and energy companies and others. I'm working for them, and I try to bring in their capital to invest here in this country because there are huge opportunities. European country. We said our people should have that. And of course it is a vicious circle, economy and human rights. I mean, one goes together with the other one. We do believe, we still believe. If you just do economy well, one day it will crack up if you don't human rights, because when democracy will come, maybe you remember there was a crisis in the 90s in the Far East. And we had tons of conversations, a lot of discussions before, years and years before, in the 90s. And believe me, the Prime Minister knows what he's doing. I mean, it wasn't just a lip thing, you know, EU or whatever. But as everybody says, it's not the where you go, it is the way where you want to go. And here the same thing goes for, and also that will be the crisis in a lot of other not open economies in the future. So we believe it comes with itself. When you open up, when you want to open up the economy, you have to start with human rights. So we did we made ourselves ready to go for the Copenhagen criteria in the human rights, and we could do EU. And we thought EU is the best alternative, because we simply wanted our people to have the same human rights and economical development like you have in any Turkey. Within 2002 to 2011, 9 years. Where did we start? Where are we now? I think we did our job here in this country, because we opened up our economy, we opened up our system to the EU. We could, my very dear friend Egemen, who is in charge of EU today,